Hi everyone, my name is Martin and welcome to my channel. With the release of the new Mutants last week, we are now officially done with the X-Men Fox movies. In this video I'm gonna rank all 13 movies, X-Men movies, from the worst to the best, including both Deadpool movies and the new Mutants movie. Keep in mind that this is my ranking, this is my opinion of course, and I would like to see yours, so feel free to comment down below what is your ranking. Quick spoiler alert for all X-Men movies before we get started, and with that said, let's get started. Coming in the last place, and this is not a surprise for everyone, is going to be X-Men Origins Wolverine. This movie is... oh my god, I don't know how to say it. Like, back then they had that idea to make origin movies about every major X-Men character, first of them being of course Wolverine, and they failed so badly that they almost immediately just stopped making those movies. I still don't know where they were going with this. They somehow managed to ruin the Weapon X storyline for me. The writing was bad. The visual effects, oh boy, let me just tell you about those visual effects. Look at those Wolverine's claws, they look so real, like it is a real plastic. I mean adamantium, of course. Also that scene in the bathroom where he destroyed everything he touched.
You're right in there?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Wow, like pure comedy, that's the real Wolverine here. And Deadpool, oh, let me just tell you about Deadpool in this movie. You know how Deadpool is always quiet and how he has that ability to pull out swords out of his hands. This is a real Deadpool, and this is a Deadpool in this movie. They look exactly the same, I mean, pretty great, right? Nothing works in this movie, except maybe Hugh Jackman's performance as a Wolverine, but everything else was so bad. Coming at number 12 is going to be X-Men Dark Phoenix. Simon Kinberg's second attempt at the Phoenix Saga somehow managed to be even worse than the first. This movie was released last year and I think that many of us already forgot about it. It is that boring. The story, the characters, they ruin every single character except Magneto. He stayed the best. But Charles Xavier, he's such a douchebag in this movie. I mean, who is this guy? Who is this character? I don't know this character at all. The villains are also so bad, those shape-shifter aliens. You can literally just delete them from the entire movie and the movie will still be the same. I get it, they have done a lot of reshoots and that last act in a train wasn't really that bad, but 90% of the movie I was bored. And it's pretty sad that they somehow managed to ruin those amazing stories like Weapon X and Dark Phoenix Saga and Age of Apocalypse, which I'm going to talk later. But for now, coming at number 11 is going to be X-Men The Last Stand. This movie is 1 hour and 45 minutes long and they tried to put in that short time as much plot as they can. So we got cure for mutant gene, we have Magneto and his organization, and of course we have the Dark Phoenix Saga. And everything is going so fast, everything is so disconnected, you can't really track what is going on, where is going on. You have a lot of new really unimportant characters. They killed Cyclops and after 5 minutes it's like nothing has happened. Same thing goes for Professor X, and those are Cyclops and Professor X that I'm talking about. Those two are very important characters for this story and they just died just like this because those stories needed to happen in that 1 hour and 45 minutes. The Phoenix Saga was so unnecessary for this movie. If the movie was just about Magneto's organization and the cure, I think it will be much better. Overall, a very bad conclusion to the original X-Men trilogy. And number 10 is going to be Age of Apocalypse. This is my favorite X-Men story from the comics. I freaking love Age of Apocalypse. This story is filled with action, the characters are done so well, everyone has something to do, everyone has some story to tell. The movie wasn't what I was expected. It started good with that scene with Magneto's family, but later he didn't really have so much things to do besides flying and yelling and destroying everything. Apocalypse in this movie was so bad portrayed. When he shows up first time, he easily killed those three men by cutting their heads with a freaking sand. And that was actually the only time he was strong. After that he was just learning and doing makeovers for his four horsemen.
Rise, my angel. Rise.
He had all the nukes in the entire world and he did nothing with them. They killed him really easy, like really easy. But this movie also had some great scenes in it. As I mentioned before, that Magneto scene with his family, and of course another Quicksilver slow motion sequence. Listen, Quicksilver, he is the best in these movies. In Days of Future Past, in Age of Apocalypse, not in Dark Phoenix. They totally destroyed that character in that movie. Another bad thing for Dark Phoenix, of course. Overall, I will highly recommend you to read the comics if you can, instead of watching this movie. And that will be it. Moving on to the number 9, which is going to be The New Mutants. A movie that came out last week and the final X-Men Fox movie. I made a review here on my channel for this movie, you can watch it here. So I'm not going to talk a lot about it in this video. And of course I'm not going to spoil anything because the movie is still fresh. So as I said before, most of this movie was so boring for me. I like that they tried something new. They tried to make a horror superhero movie, but I didn't like the final result. Everything is so cliché and everything is happening exactly the same way as you think is going to happen. The cast is good, but the characters were bad. The only reason I didn't put this movie in 12th or 11th place is because I don't know this story, I don't know those characters, so I can be disappointed just like I am with Dark Phoenix or Age of Apocalypse. So I don't have so much bad things to say about it, except that it was boring for me. And number 8 is going to be the Wolverine. Okay, now we are getting better and better. I don't have so much to say about this movie. I liked it. First 2 acts, to be clear. I like this mix of superhero and samurai movies. This is a pretty good Wolverine movie. It's exactly how Wolverine movies should look like. But the 3rd act wasn't what I was expecting. I didn't like that big samurai robot at the end. It's not that I didn't like it, I just think that it's not a good idea for a movie like this. And yes, I get it that it's a comic book movie, and in comics they always try to put something like sci-fi related in the story, but they didn't really need to do that here. I'm sure that there's so much better way to end up this movie with better looking villain except of this big fake looking samurai robot. And number 7 is going to be Deadpool 2. Some people don't really like this movie that much, but I think it was great. Not that good as the original, of course, but it was definitely funnier for me. The scene with everyone in X-Force dying at the beginning of the mission was so great, and the entire act in prison was the best. Josh Brolin as Cable, he was definitely my favorite part of this movie, if we don't include Deadpool, of course. Domino was great, and while it is a very funny and entertaining movie, the reason I have to put it in this place is because story wasn't that good. The story is moving very fast from one place to another, especially in the first half of the movie. You have X-Force, X-Men, Cable, Russell, Deadpool trying to become an X-Men, and while everything is so perfectly balanced, I still think that it is too much for one movie to take. The funniest movie, yes. The best, no. Number 6 is going to be the original X-Men. I don't really have so much to say about this movie, otherwise that it is a pretty good example how to start building your franchise. You have your favorite X-Men characters in this movie, you have your favorite villain in this movie. The story is just a normal X-Men story about relationship with humans and mutants, and while the story goes a little slow at the beginning, it's still great. They have done a really great world building in this movie. The casting was so perfect. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Halle Berry as Storm, Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Ian McKellen as Magneto, and there's also a couple of cringy moments when they were trying to make a specific scene look more serious, just like in the comics, just like this scene with Storm.
Do you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to everything else.
Which, to be clear, I don't hate. I understand that this movie came out in year 2000, and in that time the comic book movies weren't that popular as they are now. So it was kinda normal to make those cringy scenes. I still think that Halle Berry is the best Storm. Overall, a great movie and a great start with building a franchise. At number 5 is X-Men First Class. This movie, I wasn't expecting it to be that good. Mostly because I'm not a big fan of prequels. But I love this movie, and I feel like every time I'm rewatching it, I love it even more. Listen, every movie now from number 5 can be my number 1 X-Men movie. Those are my top 5 favorite X-Men movies, and it was pretty hard for me to rank them. The cast for this movie is what actually makes me love this movie so much. Michael Fassbender is for sure my favorite Magneto. James McAvoy was great like Charles Xavier. And I think that Kevin Bacon done such a great work with being Sebastian Shaw. Everything works for this movie. The story, characters, tone. Last act was especially so good. It's filled with great action scenes, and it was beautiful to watch it. Number 4 is going to be Deadpool. I think this is Ryan Reynolds' dream come true. For him being in so many bad comic book movies such as like Blade 3, Green Lantern, and of course Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine, to finally get a good comic book movie, and oh boy, it was more than good. I can't imagine anyone else but Ryan Reynolds to play Deadpool. This is his dream role, and I'm so glad that this movie is such a success. The movie itself is very entertaining, and it's rated R, so it's full with violence and great action scenes. Deadpool as a character is one of my favorite Marvel characters, and my favorite anti-hero for sure. I like every time when he breaks the fourth wall, no matter if it is in the comics or in the movie. The story in this movie is so great. It's an origin story, but it was represented in such a good way. The first action scene was so great, and it is still one of my favorite action scenes from any X-Men movie. And number 2 is going to be X-Men 2, X-Men United. Just like first movie was a great example how to start building a franchise, this movie, the second movie, is a great example how to make a great sequel. A primary inspiration for this movie was a comic book, X-Men God Loves, Man Kills, which is also one of the greatest X-Men comic book storylines ever told. This movie took a story from the first movie and made it so much better. We have something about Wolverine's past, which we didn't have in the first movie, We have the good guys team up with the bad guys to take down the common enemy. Everything in this movie feels great. Everything is at the right place. From the beginning with Nightcrawler in the White House to the end with Jane Grey sacrificing her life. Okay, moving on to the second place, which is going to be Days of Future Past. This is my most rewatched X-Men movie, and it's definitely not a movie made only for X-Men fans. Everyone can enjoy it. I really like how they brought together the cast from the original trilogy and the First Class franchise. There's so many things, so many great things that I can talk about this movie. From that Quicksilver's amazing slow motion sequence, which is one of my favorite moments in film history. It is so well done with great music in the background. To Magneto lifting the whole freaking stadium. The story is also very good and the acting is gone to whole another level. That scene with young and old Xavier with James McAvoy and Patrick Stewart was so well done, and James McAvoy really killed his role in this film. This is actually the only X-Men movie when I think he was better than Michael Fassbender. Hugh Jackman does the best Wolverine ever, and he really is the one who is carrying this movie, and actually he is the one who is carrying the entire X-Men franchise. The visual effects were the best. I enjoyed watching every single frame of this movie. From the beginning to the end, everything in this movie works so well. And it is definitely the movie that I'm going to rewatch the most in the future. But my number one is going to be Logan. I think no one is surprised with this because this is Logan. I mean, this movie is a totally different level from the other 12 movies. It doesn't feel like an X-Men movie, it doesn't even feel like a comic book movie, in a good way, of course. This is the true ending to the X-Men movies. Forget about this trash. This movie is full with violence and blood, but at the same time is one of the most touching and heartbreaking movies of all time. This is a character movie. It's not so much about plot, it's not so much about visual effects. It's a movie that shows us how much we actually care about those characters who were there for 20 years now. It's a movie that shows us how much actually they care for each other. It's the final conclusion of their story. It's a movie that 100% works out for me. And watching this movie, I didn't actually care about anything but those three characters and their journey. The final scene with Logan's funeral was so touching, and for me is one of the saddest moments in whole film history. The death of a character who's been here with us for 20 years now. So there you have it. This is my ranking for all 13 X-Men movies, from the worst to the best. This is my opinion, of course, and I would like to see yours, so feel free to comment down below what is your ranking. Subscribe to my channel for more rankings and reviews. Like this video if you enjoy it, and I will see you next time. Bye.